hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Julie Spear. I'm the Assistant Director and Senior Instructional Designer in AT Still University's Teaching and Learning Center, which we shorten and call the TLC. I want to welcome everyone here in the Zoom room today and those who are watching this recording online. And I want to note that today's Tech Time will be split into two major parts. First, I'm going to give a recap of this month's Canvas in 5, and then I'll provide a demonstration. And that's the portion that we're going to record and put up on our YouTube channel that we call the Learning Channel. Then we'll stop the recording and we'll provide a space for question and answer and for discussion. And so because of that structure, I'm going to ask that the folks who are joining us live, please keep your questions until the end of the demonstration, and then we'll turn off the recording and we'll open for Q&A. I also want to offer two brief reminders before we jump in. The first is that the previous Canvas in 5 and Tech Time recordings are available on the Learning Channel. I see Erin has put that in the chat. Thank you so much. And I also wanted to note that attending Tech Time or reporting your engagement with previously recorded Tech Times is eligible for half a credit toward level 2. That's the technology level in our Level Up certificate program. So in this month's Canvas in 5, we discussed the fact that Canvas has two different tools for building quizzes. They call these quiz engines, and there's classic quizzes and new quizzes. And as we talked about in Canvas in 5, the major differences are sort of the steps that you take to build out a quiz, although there are some different question types that you can build in either of the formats. And so today we're going to go through and build a quiz in each of these engines, which I hope helps you feel a little bit more comfortable with the process and kind of helps illustrate the differences between the two. So let me share my screen now. All right, can I get a thumbs up that you're seeing? Awesome, thank you so much. All right, perfect. So let's start off at the top. We're going to go and build a classic quiz. So here I'm going to click plus quiz, and we're going to go to classic. And we'll hit submit. And now we can give this a name. So I'll do sample quiz for now. And in the space below that, we can add some instructions. So here I'm indicating that this is a practice, designed to give students practice. They'll have multiple opportunities to take the quiz. The highest score will be kept, and they'll have 10 minutes to submit the responses. So below these instructions, if I go to quiz type, I can have this be graded. I could have it be practice. For now, we'll do graded. And as we indicated in the instructions, the students should have 10 minutes to work on this. And we can click this option to allow multiple attempts. So all these things are customizable, right? You don't have to set a time limit. You can constrain the number of times that students can take the quiz, but here we'll do multiple attempts. And as we included in the instructions, we'll keep the highest score. I also will use these options to customize when students can see the feedback. So here in particular, I will do this and allow the students to see after each attempt and let them see the correct answers. But again, this is customizable. You could choose to show the answers at a particular date. So maybe after the deadline, for example. So we set the time limit, we allowed those multiple attempts. Now we can go down to the very bottom here, and we could set a due date. So let's just pick Monday at 11:59 for now. Scrolling up at the top, we can start building out this quiz. And so what I want to note is that here you're seeing that this is currently worth 0 points. In classic quizzes, as we build the quiz, this will update based on the number of points that we assign for each question. So here, let's build a true-false question. So under question, I can find true-false. And here I've got a stem. Let's do true or false, vertebrae are part of the axial skeletal system. So here, this is where I could assign this to be half a point, for example. So that'll customize it. And then once we save this question, we should see that update under points. We also have the option to give feedback here. So this is a true statement, and we can click to add feedback. Then click done to save it, and do the same for the incorrect. Now we can update that question. And like I said, now the points are updated up here. Let's do another one. Let's do a multiple answer. And here, let's do, which of the following activities of daily living does the spine play a critical function in supporting? Select all that apply. And so here, give me a second to type in some answers. I'll do sitting. Copying these in, great. I could add another. And our last one, bending. So here we can add feedback for each answer, or we can add feedback for the overall question. And I should note, this is multiple, these are all correct. So I want to make sure that all of these are listed as being correct. Great. And we can update that question as well. If I wanted to change that, I actually wanted that to be half a point. I can hit the little pencil icon and come here and update those points. Let's do a open-ended question next. Let's do an essay question. And here, let's have this be, this is a harder question. Let's make this 2 points. And here we could have in 50 to 200 words, list the components of the intervertebral disc, excuse me, and explain their functions. And we can update this now. And let's do 2 more questions. Let's do a multiple drop-down. So this is nice because it allows students to have to fill in the blank, but we can do multiple blanks in one sentence. So here I have a question. The facet joints are cartilaginous joints that allow the vertebrae to slide against each other. So I have the option, if I wanted to have this be multiple drop downs or multiple fill in the blanks, depending. Classic quizzes, these are actually 2 different question types. And I built that blank by putting in a bracket and the word. Even if it's multiple words, you want to do it as one. So here, facet joints would have a space in it normally, but for the quiz to work properly, we have to take that space out for the drop downs. So when we scroll down, and let me check, I wanted this to be half a point. So here, when we scroll down, we can see that this will allow us to pre-fill in options for that first blank. So again, the correct answer is facet joints. And we could add other possible answers here. So synovial joints, for example. And let's do one more kind of distractor here. And now I can pick the next one. Cartilaginous is the correct answer, but I can add other distractors. And let's do one more, ball and socket joint. So when we preview this, I'll show you that the option will be allowing students to use a dropdown to pick the answer here. And let's do one last question. We'll do this as a matching question. And we'll make this half a point. And here, let's do the question, please match the name of the spinal region with the number of vertebrae it contains. So here, the format that we need to follow is that each should fall on, need to add an answer. Seven. And we just add each one in. And then here we can add multiple distractors that would add in the options for the matching. So here, maybe I wanted to add 1, or excuse me, 4, 1, and 10. And now we can update that as well. So let's go here up to the top. Oops, let's save it first, sorry. And now we can preview it once we've saved it. So we can see true, false questions are showing up as radio buttons like we would expect. Here, generally in user interfaces, a multiple select is often kind of the square box. So we can see here that students could select multiple. Answer this. Remember, we had these as the drop down. So here we would have the options that we pre-filled in. Maybe I'll do one of these as correct. And then here, it looks like maybe that didn't load in properly. Let me go back and check that one, but this is loading properly, which is what we would expect to see. So here the students would have an option to select the number that is correct for that region of the spine. So just to be quick about it, I'm just selecting different options, and now they could submit the quiz. So let's go back and check that one last question. Oops, up at the top, sorry. That was this one. Oops, I just had entered, clicked add too many. So we'll take those away. We just click the trash can to delete them. I apologize about that. But like I said, as we had expected, we would see those drop downs, including the distractors that we asked it to add. So I could update that question and I could save it. I do want to note we gave a time limit for this, so that is showing up here in the instructions on Canvas. And when students when we preview the question and students are answering it, they will have a timer letting them know that countdown there. So let's go next and build a quiz in new quizzes and look at how it's different. So here we'll do sample new quiz, not the most creative quiz name, right? But just for the purposes of demonstration. Let's make this 4 points. We can grade it as points. And let's just set the same due date of next Monday. In this case, we start building the quiz by hitting the build button at the bottom. So a little bit different of a user interface. And here in this text box, by clicking in, we can add those instructions. So the same instructions that I had before. We can click done. And because we set, again, the time limit and the number of responses that students are allowed to have, or number of attempts, let's make sure that we go up into settings here and turn on time limit. So we said 10 minutes. We said allow multiple attempts. And we said to keep the highest score. So now we can go back to the build. And let's start again with that true-false question. So similar question here. Sorry, there it is. So in new quizzes, you do have to give each quiz question a title. So here I might call this axial skeletal system. And then I can paste in that question stem. This is true. And then at the bottom here in new quizzes is where I assign the points. So if I want this to be half a point, I can add that in. And then the feedback we add in through this little button that kind of looks like a conversation icon. So we're going to click that, and that's where we can add the feedback. So for correct and for incorrect. So I hope you're seeing that a lot of the same functions exist. It just is a little bit of a different way to get to those options. We can click done and done again, and that'll save that question. Let's do a multiple answer question next. So again, we have to give it a name. Let's say spine functions, for example. And we'll add our question. And here, remember, all of these are correct, so I just need to copy and paste them in. Oops. And make sure that the option is toggled on to tell the software that is an answer. Correct answer, I should say. Go to the next one. And here we just need to add one more, and that's our bending. All right, here we'll do 0.5, and we showed how to do feedback, so I'm going to skip that for now, but remember we would add that little conversation button. So here we could keep adding some of the same questions. I did want to point out that the essay question has a couple different functions compared to in classic quizzes. Particularly, you can add the word limit and the word count, which is a really nice feature if you're having students engage with these questions where you want word limits. So here we could set this as 50 and 200, for example, and hit save. And now we can add our fill in the blank. This works a little bit different than in classic quizzes. It's just a little bit of a difference in the user interface. So here, instead of brackets, we have to use backticks around the word that we want them to fill in. And we can add a space here, which is nice, so we don't get confused about the typo. And then here you have an option right in this question type to choose whether you want open entry, where the student has to supply the vocabulary word on their own, to use a drop down like we had in classic quizzes, or to have a word bank. So it's up to you what you choose, but you have different options here. And again, we could customize the number of points and add feedback. And then lastly, I just want to highlight here that one of the unique question types in the new quizzes is this option to do a hotspot question. So this is really nice for question types where you want students to click on an image or highlight something in a little bit more of a unique way. So let me add in a question stem, and very quickly I'll just show you. I have a picture of the spine that I downloaded from the internet. Here we could have this as our question where we ask them to select which is the region that's the thoracic region. And so here we could draw around the area. And when I click done, they'll have to click on the image to select which region they'd like to save as their answer, which is a kind of nice feature. This question type is not available in classic quizzes. It's only available in new quizzes. So just before we finish here, I want to go up to preview to show you what this would look like. So here again, we have a timer showing how much time we have left for the quiz. And again, we're seeing those radio buttons. We can select multiple options in our multiple answer question. We can add some text. It's going to get mad because I know I have a minimum of 50 words here, but that's okay. Here we have this as open answer, so there's no word bank, which is what we would expect. And then the hotspot region, again, like I said, they have to click on the region. So they could select a region of the image before they hit submit. Before opening for questions, I want to say that I know this was a quick overview. If you'd like to get more individualized support related to quizzes, please connect with the TLC. I also want to note that you can leverage the guides from Canvas that we'll put links to in the chat and we'll share on YouTube. So thank you so much.